Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to dome your polymer clay, and I'm going to be showing you 3 ways of doing that. So here are some examples of pieces that I've made using these techniques. So this is one where I have domed it and it's one solid piece with a flat back, and I'll be showing that one first. Here is an example of using a form to get a dome where you don't have a flat back. So you can see there, and that will be the second one. And then here is an example of creating a dome, but it is hollow, so there's air inside here. We have a dome and a flat back, but this is flat. This is a sheet that is laid flat on top of a surface, and this is flat as well, so inside here is hollow, and so I'll be showing you how to do that as well. So let's start with our first technique, which is the easiest. You are going to need a sheet of polymer clay, any colour. If you have a veneer, you can use that as well. So let's pretend this is your veneer that you want to use. I'm going to fold it so that it is nice and thick. If this was a veneer, you would just basically have a sheet of plain polymer clay and then you would lay it on top to make it nice and thick. But you want it to be at least 4 millimeters thick. Then you want to take some plastic, and you can use a bag. The more layers of plastic you have, the thicker the dome, the bigger the dome will be. So if you just use one layer of cling wrap, it will just gently round the edges. If you use one layer of plastic from a plastic bag, it will give a shallow dome. And if you use 2 layers of plastic like here, it's going to give you a really nice solid dome. And it also is going to depend on what size cutter you're using. So if you're using one really large cutter, you're going to get a shallow dome even if you use thick pieces of plastic. Whereas if you use a small cutter, you're going to get a much heavier dome. So let me show you these two together. So this is a larger cutter, and you want to cut down, and now you can't expect it to cut cleanly. You're going to need to do that afterwards. So I've just cut there, and I'll lift, and you can see that it's giving me a nice dome. Then you'll retake whatever cutter you're using and cut down again. And now you can't use that piece of plastic again because you can see that it's all crinkled and not very good. So relay it down and then go to your next cutter. And now this is much smaller, so we should end up with a much taller dome. And if this is giving you trouble, you can always take an acrylic block and press down on it, because it can be a little bit much to try and press that plastic. Plastic causes a bit of resistance. There we are, and then lift this away. And you can see that one has a very nice dome, but this one's got like a really tall dome. And now the plastic is going to create ripples along the edge, so you're going to need to smooth that off. You can use a metal tool, you can use a rubber sculpting tool, you can use your fingers like I am now. And I'm just going to clean this up. Okay, and let me just grab a blade, and you're going to see that there's a lot of residue, so oftentimes you can either pick it up and wipe away the residue, or you can grab a blade and clean up that residue, because the plastic will have created that, even if you're using a metal cutter. Now in this case I actually discourage using metal cutters simply because they cut through the plastic, and so oftentimes I don't get a good enough dome because they will have cut through one side of the plastic and it will actually give me a bit of a wonky dome. So in this case plastic cutters are really good because they're going to help, that they won't cut straight through that plastic, whereas metal will. So definitely use a plastic cutter if you can. And then you're just going to need to smooth those sides, and then you'll have a really nicely domed piece. Okay. So all you do is you then go around with your finger and gently smooth. And the thicker the plastic, the heavier your the amount of crinkles and ripples and things you're going to get around the edge. but they're fairly easy to get rid of. You just need to go and gently smooth away. And smooth instead of waiting until after it's baked and relying on sanding. That's never a good idea. Okay, there's that one. And then this one as well, you will need to smooth the edges. So that's type number 1, and so it's a little bit of admin work after you have cut them, but it does a pretty good job. So that's type number 1. Now type number 2 is fairly easy as well. That is doming over a object. So again, you'll need another sheet of polymer clay, and it will be your finished veneer ready to go. So for instance with this one, my piece looked exactly like this, it just wasn't sanded or anything and it was unbaked. So you want to have your veneer all prepped and ready to go before you use this technique. So we will quickly cut out our bead. So let's say that is our bead, and then lift this up. Make sure that the sides are nice and smooth. Like so. And then you'll grab a doming tool. Now you can use a jar, you can use a bowl, or you can use these cool doming tools that I sell on my shop, Jessama Design. And you'll just try and place it right in the middle, and then gently smooth. You can see it's some black clay's got under my nail there. Need to get that out. Just gently smooth onto the surface. Don't press too hard, you just want to make sure that it is nice and flat. And there you can see that that has created a dome. And it's a really nice shallow dome, and the thing is you're going to bake that and the back is going to not be completely flat, which is completely fine as you saw with the donut. But this is another way of baking your piece. So you'll bake it on this and then you'll continue finishing like you would normally. So that is method number 2, and it's a lot cleaner and it's actually a lot easier than method number 1. Okay, and for method number 2 you're going to want your back clay and your supposed veneer. So let's pretend this is our veneer. So you just pop your backing to the side, and for this one you're going to need a cutter. So I'm just going to use one of these cutters. Any cutter will work, but again a plastic one does work better because it will slightly smear your edges. And all you're going to do is you're gently going to place this inside your cutter, and I'm just pressing. And this is not going to create a very defined dome, or defined shape. It will do a decent job of it, but it's going to give it a really rounded effect. So you can see on the back how domed it is. Then grab your backing clay, place this down, and then I like to just gently smooth these edges so that the air doesn't escape. Then press down. And this is why a plastic cutter is also really nice, because it will just gently smear those edges so that your air can't escape. Okay. And now you can see when I press on this, I can press on there quite easily because there is air inside here. So when you bake it, or before you bake it, just grab a blade or a piercing tool, and just gently in the side poke a little hole so that the air can escape during the baking process, because otherwise it can sometimes burst. But yeah, so you just want to make sure that you put a little hole in there so that it allows it to the air to escape when it gets hot. So generally I like to put that hole where I would probably put my hole for drilling, but just remember to do that because otherwise it can burst. But that's also a really nice way of creating a dome, and compared to our first one over here, you can see how much neater it is. There's no ripples, no problems. It creates a very nice dome. It gives it a really nice equal dome, whereas this one, it really depends on how large your cutter is. You can end up with a really shallow dome and a really thick dome depending on the size of the cutter, whereas this one you will end up with an equal dome each time. And also it does a pretty good job of capturing the shape, and it doesn't have any of those ripples, so this is definitely a better version of this one if you can manage to do it. It's a little bit more tricky, but it gives a much better finish, so I would go with this one if you can manage to do that. So that is basically how you create domes in polymer clay, and so I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Let me know if it was helpful to you and answered some of your questions that you came with already when you were watching this video. And if you do still have questions, please do leave them in the comments below. I will either link to a video or an article that will answer your question, or if I don't have a video and article, I will answer your question as best I can, and then I will also add that question to my list of videos to make, because I would like to answer your videos as best I can. So leave any questions you have in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.